Hello, everyone, and welcome to Canadians with Disabilities and their Allies. My name is Brent Frain. I'm the host. And also join me on the podcast version, wherever you find it available on your favorite app. Spotify, you can do a Google search. You can check out on the Apple iPhone store, whatever you want to call it, and you know where to find it. And definitely subscribe to Neil Matheson's YouTube channel. And you'll find the latest shows, and you can tune in live and watch it on your screen TV or wherever you find it most suitable to you. Today, I have Cheryl Hardcastle joining me. It's always lovely to have you come back on the show from time to time, Cheryl. Awesome to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Hanging in there. Had that respiratory infection for a while, so building my stamina back up. And glad to be here talking to you and all of our disability allies and people living the life and trying to sharpen their swords every day and advocate, right?
Yeah, advocacy never takes a break. It never takes a break.
Yeah, that's why shows like this are good. It helps us build up our energy and our spirits again, affirming each other for what we're doing, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, exactly. And it just shines a light on all the inequalities that people with disabilities in Canada face on a day-to-day basis, and what they go through. And the show is all about lived experience stories too. And we do a segment actually every Monday now on disability stories. I'm just so thrilled about having that. And we do like a 9-series show on just focus
and then we kill it off.
Yeah, and then we show it up and we start a new one on whatever the theme may be. Is it on transportation? Is it about accessibility? And I find accessibility a huge part in people's lives on a day-to-day basis, on the barriers that they face, all the obstacles that industries have just neglected to deal with. Yeah. And now shine a light on how do we fix these things?
Yeah.
You had an example about the post office, Brent.
I do, yeah, exactly. And then like Sonia had her Omnipod Dash that comes on a regular basis, and so she figured that was available, at her door. And we had a little slip that with yesterday that actually says to go to your local post office, which is about a 5 to 6 minute bus ride from here. You can walk it, but if for some reason that her sugar numbers are off whack, then it's just not accessible for her. Now she has to take the bus to go down there, and it's inconvenient too, because the actual item should have been dropped off inside right near her door, and instead no, because there was no signature required, so it should have been dropped off. Now she has to go out of her way to go all the way down there to pick up a small little box that should have just been dropped off, and that was Canada Post's decision not to do that for whatever reason. Maybe I'll get your take on that, Cheryl.
I think it's left to individual postal carriers to make these decisions because they don't have a guideline in place. They don't have a policy in place, or they don't have something in place that makes it easier for a postal carrier to say, oh, I should bring this inside. That's part of it. Right now, you're relying on individual postal carriers. What kind of a day are they having? How many packages? How far behind are they? A number of factors. If this was a guideline that was actually put in place that they were using, then you wouldn't have to follow up with and this will probably be something for your, you were talking about your Monday show about these everyday experiences of barriers. Now, I know what a big deal it is to have to go out and actually go to the post office to physically pick up this box. That is a big deal. And, you know, it's frustrating because we always have to be advocating. We always have to be looking at ways to utilize the tools that are available, even though they seem ineffectual. For example, that story you just told me, you should write a letter to Canada Post and explain how this very simple experience could have been alleviated if they have a guideline in place that when a signature is not required to bring a package inside, because there are accessibility issues. The thing is, this year, under our, remember our Accessible Canada Act that everyone celebrated, that was passed in 2019, I'm just trying to look, it's if you're under federal jurisdiction and you have more than 100 employees, you had until June 1st of this year, June 1st, 2023, to file your company, your organization's accessibility plan. That had to be filed. Okay? So Canada Post has filed their accessibility plan somewhere. It may, it might be short-term and long-term accessibility goals and the concrete steps the organization is going to take to identify and remove and prevent barriers. But the kicker is they have to resubmit this accessibility plan every 3 years. So they have to update it every 3 years. And in the meantime, what they have to do is publish not just publish these accessibility plans every 3 years. In the interim years, organizations are required to prepare and publish progress reports that describe the actions that the organization has taken to implement their accessibility plan. And progress reports must also include information on any feedback they received and how the organization considered the feedback. So if you write a letter with direct attention to their accessibility plan and then say, there was an opportunity for my postal carrier to put a package inside my residential building. There was no signature required. It put the onus on me, a person living with a disability, to retrieve this from the post office, and it wasn't practical. It created an additional barrier to me receiving the equipment that I need for my condition. Okay, that's all you have to say. And they have to publish that. This is how it's worded anyway, that they have to publish their feedback, how the organization considered the feedback. Now that is in the Accessible Canada Act. So they have to file this plan and they have to consider feedback and they have to issue in the interim years, every 3 years is a new accessibility plan, and they have to issue these reports. So this is the first year. Let's see how effective we, as people living with disabilities and us allies, let's see how diligent we can make these organizations in fulfilling the intent of this regulation that they file these plans. I think it's a great opportunity for anybody.
I think so too. Yeah.
And talking to people on Monday as well, on your Monday show, and that lived experience every day. Sometimes talking about it and gives people encouragement. Put a pen to paper. You don't have to be a Pulitzer Prize winner. Just put your thoughts on paper. Tell them that you know they have to meet an accessibility plan under the Act and that you expect them to respond to you.
Mhm.
And keep a copy of your letter. That's easier to do nowadays. A lot of people have computers. You can email the letter and keep a copy for yourself. But I would do that. I think we've got to leverage, even though we criticize and talk about how weak our existing legislation is, we can't give up, right? We have no other choice. And we've
Yeah.
got to try and leverage it. Let's use it to the extent that it's supposed to work and see how they fall short, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah,
That
totally.
That was due on June 1st of 2023. So I'm thinking Canada Post, the Bank of Canada, airlines, Air Canada's got to have an accessibility plan. And I hope anybody that has an experience, I've read some really, really disturbing accounts that made the news, not just with Air Canada, in fairness, other airlines that are operating in Canada as well. Everybody has a story. You've got to put these in writing, and you can copy a minister as well. It's really easy to find their emails at parl.gc.ca, right? And I think we've got to start holding them to account for these legislation like this wording that, and these actions or these incentives, a lot of times when we're really cynical, some of us look at it and think it's gesture politics. It's not really going to do anything. Where's the beef, right?
Right.
So we've got to make this have the beef, and I think that's a good way to do it. So and these places are supposed to have on their websites their accessibility plan too. So if you look for one and you can't find it, that's a letter of complaint.
Yeah.
It should be easy for you to access this on a website, right?
Yeah. Well, I've got two things, Brent. One thing is, does your building, I know it's an older building, does it have a parcel box?
It doesn't, no.
Because our building here, or my building, did have a parcel box up until a couple of years ago, and they put one in. So that's something you can request from.
We have requested.
And they haven't, they don't want to put one in?
Apparently they don't. Canada Post actually wants to put one in, but the management company, they said that the owner doesn't want to pay to have the box in. So Canada Post is actually very upset about that, because due to safety and security, they said they would rather have a box in there where it's more secure. But unfortunately, Canada Post, they said their hands are tied. I used to talk to our local guy, but then they swapped him out with somebody else now. He does a different route.
Well, that's another letter of complaint that you can file then, because that's crazy that that the owner is kicking up a fuss about that.
I'm just thinking too now we're so used to this being in the realm of disability advocacy. You have several different jurisdictions sometimes. Who's the critic? Who's the minister for people with disabilities in your province? Give them a heads up. You've got landlords. You've got landlords who are making it difficult for Canada Post to remove barriers.
Yeah.
Get Dan Davies on it.
Yeah. He's Dan Davies is the critic for Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction in British Columbia. He's the critic for the ministry. Honorable Sheila Malcolmson is the actual MLA.
I would let her know. She might not know. Like, you have to assume when you have a situation like this, there's probably, I don't know, at least 100 other people that are being affected by the same thing, right? Like these decisions have a ripple effect.
Yeah, because there was some other people that I spoke to recently at a bus stop just down the road from here, which is only like not even a 2-minute walk. If I went up my building, like literally 1 minute, it's you punch in Google, it'll tell you, well, your bus is going to be there in 1 minute. It's like, well, no, you have to allow yourself more time than that. So I never go with what Google said. But anyway, getting to my point is, I talked to a group of people before, and they live in some other buildings that are not even part of the same management company as the place I live in, and they have the same problem. So
Wow.
I encouraged them. I said, yeah, like what we're talking about now is I said that talk to your local MLA and let them know that that you need them to enforce somehow to
Yeah.
get that happening, because it's a safety and accessibility issue too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to say, Brent, is
Mhm.
what Cheryl was saying about the legislation and accessible legislation, how important that is.
Mhm.
But what I was going to say as well is, like you and I both know, is just just out of our lived experience over decades. Like when I first started working, I started working at the provincial government in the Ministry of Environment.
Mhm.
And so that was back when I was like, I think 27. So we're going back well over 25 years ago.
Mhm.
But that was my first really big, important job that I got. Um, and the employer was very honest with me. They said, well, we don't really hire a lot of people with disabilities, and so we're kind of taking a flyer on you, kind of thing. And so they didn't actually know what to expect of me. And so when they found out that I actually uh, knew my shit, so to speak, and was very knowledgeable about computers and could build really complex databases and on and on. They're like, wow, this is like really, we're really impressed. And so, I had all my bosses come and they're like, I just want you to know, Neil, like we had no idea that you were going to work out this good. And because you worked out so well, we're going to actually hire additional people with disabilities because of your success. And so that to me was like almost the biggest, I don't know, it was like a really big compliment. And
Yeah, for sure.
basically what I was saying is like I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was just like living my life normally.
You're just being
And
you.
I
Yeah.
was just being me, and I was impacting future policy just by going about and doing my regular business. So
Mhm.
I mean, yes, we have legislation, but we also have just people doing their regular day-to-day life, and just doing your regular day-to-day life is actually can influence employers, can influence day-to-day activity for other people down the line.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that too, Neil. Is like impacts like on legislation on how it impacts people's lives on a day-to-day basis, and that kind of leads into a discussion that I wanted to bring up. Is as we all know, like a lot of people in the disability community across Canada have been calling for. It just feels like decades and decades, but it's we've been well, it hasn't been decades, but it just
Well,
feels like
it has been though. Like
yeah,
the
no, I know,
the
but we've
the
been calling
legislative
for
poverty part has
yeah,
been
Yeah.
30 years or 3 decades
yeah.
of legislated poverty. So that is true.
Yeah, but what we've been calling for is that DERB, right? I remember once upon a time where it was a DERB, and some people would say it's the Disability Emergency Response Benefit or Disability Emergency Relief Benefit. However, the terminology may be, we all called for it, and then recently, a lot there was MPs that were really putting out petitions and really gearing to try to put the recognition of the inequalities of how urgent that we need to have emergency funds sent out to people with disabilities across Canada. I mean, the urgency is there. I mean, it was there right from the beginning. It was there for decades, as we say it. But since it was actually mentioned in 2000 and 2020, right? The Mr. Trudeau had promised. He promised a Canada disability benefit. Now we know that it's going to take years before, and hopefully maybe even longer. But they want to get it right. Apparently, they want to study the hell out of it. They want to get and figure out who it's going to go to. They haven't even figured all that out yet. But in the meantime, it's getting that disability emergency response or relief benefit or response benefit, however you may want to word it, out to people. And I mean, CERB, like, I mean, it got out there really quick, right? We know, I mean, there were hiccups and you go with that, but hiccups in
But it
disability.
took 11 days. It took
Yeah.
11 days
Yeah.
for them to figure
Yeah.
out and to roll out CERB
Yeah.
and to realize people need $2,000 a month. What a lot of, I'm sure all of your viewers are informed, but just in case you have some new viewers or new allies coming in, a lot of people don't realize that to get CERB, so many people, like everyone on disability, was left out because they didn't, they being the federal government, when they were calculating, you had to have made $5,000 a year at least to collect CERB, but they didn't count if you had the if you had a disability tax benefit or any other disability pension, that didn't count. So you couldn't collect CERB. They don't realize people with disabilities got no support during the pandemic. And with our inflation, the way it's been, you know, there's a host of things that have happened. And I just like, I can't believe that there wasn't something that was implemented by the end of this year.
Well, yeah, and like there was 2 petitions that were actually turned down by 2 members of parliament that had pushed it. And it's so devastating to the disability community.
The responses to it was so weak. It was almost inexcusable to ignore the plight of people that are living in, as you said, Neil, legislated poverty. I think it's 30% below what Canada uses as a low income measure.
Yeah, that's not even including the cost of having a disability. That's just the base
and
cutoff.
That's exactly yeah. So yeah, it's super frustrating, but people who can have to take those frustrations and have to write, get to the keyboard. You've got to write. And I'll tell you an important deadline that's coming up, talking about the new Canada Disability benefit that's, you know, seems like it's so far away. Are we ever going to see it to fruition? But
next Christmas, maybe.
Canada has the federal, exactly. The federal government and the Minister of Diversity, Inclusion and Persons with Disabilities, that's Kamal Kara, she announced the launch of the Canada Disability Benefit Regulation online engagement tool. So it is really, here's more irony for you, right? It's really hard to find. If you go to canada.ca, you have to go to Employment and Social Development Canada. You got to click on that. It's really hard to find. I'm not trying to be flippant. If people are interested in following through, what I suggest in your Google search, type in update on the new Canada Disability Benefit.
Yeah, basically
type that in, and then in your search, it will come up. It says Canadians invited to help design, and there's a hyperlink in this news release for the online engagement tool. And it's so hard to find that path. That's what I mean.
Yeah. So basically, it's like Cheryl. So they're not making it accessible at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've noticed that. I've noticed that a lot about the federal websites, and also if you phone. A while back, I was phoning Canada Immigration, you know, because you know my wife has got her landed, or not, you know, her what do you call it, permanent residency now. But you know, when I was sponsoring her, we had a couple questions to ask Canada Immigration. So I mean, you go on the directory tree for the telephone, and it's like this whole "Where's Waldo?" Like you go click one, and then you go, like, now you got a whole option of like another tree, and then you go down that tree, and then you go all the way to the end, and they put you on put you on hold and you go through, you click all these buttons, like 9 buttons, and you get all the way to the end and they like put you on hold. And then it's like, after waiting on hold for like 10 minutes and they're like, we're sorry, there's nobody here to take your call right now.
Oh man.
And it's like,
Oh,
wow.
talk about runaround, eh? Like, yeah.
Oh, it's just crazy. Yeah.
It's like a cat chasing its tail, right?
Yeah. It's kind of funny, but it's not funny,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, again, I mean, that's just a huge accessibility issue too, right?
It is, but we need those of us that can have to find a way to get to the path. That online engagement tool that is being offered, it's only until December 21st.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
That's a really tight window.
Yep.
yeah.
November
Very
15th to December 21st.
Wow.
For this online engagement tool. And like I said, I think your best way to get the tool itself, it says Canada Disability Benefit Regulation Online Engagement Tool, and it's underlined, like it's hyperlinked, and you click on it and you go to it from this news release.
I don't know,
That's
Cheryl.
the easiest path. So just you have to type in update on the new Canada Disability Benefit.
Yeah.
Then this news release comes up with these easy links to the engagement tool. But if you actually go to canada.ca, like I said, Employment and Social Development Canada, you got to click there. Then you find the Canada Disability Benefit.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
under something else. Like, it's very convoluted.
Very cumbersome.
But
Yeah, and the thing is, on any of these online engagement tools, as we know, remember the survey that was done about the disability benefit back when Carla Qualtrough was still the minister?
No, right.
It was so narrowly focused. You answer the questions, but it's the comment boxes.
Yeah.
That's the only way you really can give your input.
Well, you mentioned the 21st for the engagement tool. I mean, that's such a narrow window, and I don't know about you, Cheryl, but it almost seems like the government doesn't want any feedback. You know
what they're going to say, and then so they can say, look, we gave everybody a month and only X number of people answered. It's and I don't know how well it's being promoted either, because I would have that would be a pop-up window on my, like, right on canada.ca. Any ongoing surveys, whether it's, let's say it's for, I don't know, Oceans Canada or whatever it is, and they want engagement, you should have those right up front. Click here for the Canada Disability Benefits online engagement tool. Click here for the pollution reduction, like whatever the feedback is, that should be right on the front. But they set it up that way. And I was reading somewhere else too that phase 2 of getting their information and publishing the policy for the Canada Disability Benefit, they have to publish it in the Canada Gazette. It will include the feedback. So if they don't get any feedback, there was in a hard place. I feel sorry for people who have limited access to a computer. Can you imagine? You're trying to be engaged in your community. You have all these different barriers to participate. You go, you find a way, you get to your local library, and you have limited time that you can use these computers. Like, sit on my computer and find this information. I'm not being rushed.
No, I was reading something about June 25th about the Canada Disability Benefit. Some people are saying the June 2025.
June 25th is when they have to table the regulations, I think. or they have to, is the first phase when they have to table it. Then it still has to be enacted.
Yeah.
So they've got to work with the provinces. We understand all that already. I don't know if you guys follow, but there was a transition binder from one minister to the next in the province of Ontario, for people living with disabilities. And in it, it said that there is an opportunity to cut costs with the Canada Disability Benefit. Now, that's saying what the fear was for a lot of what is the incentive for a province to uphold their obligations, right? The federal government is going to do this, so we don't have to do it anymore. They've got to figure out a way to keep it, keep those obligations from being watered down, I guess, because the federal government is now supplementing income. The whole purpose of this federal entity, the Canada Disability Benefit, is because we know that people are living below the poverty line. And this is supposed to help address that, alleviate that. But if each province finds their own way to use this opportunity to cut their costs,
to do
cross purposes with the whole point, right?
I just wish it was a bit more transparent, everything, right? I mean, if it was a bit more transparent.
Well, because Neil, I've been hearing on Twitter, or of course Elon calls it X, but I call it Twitter still. I've been hearing a lot of chatter about people fearing that, and I don't want to put fear into the disability community. No, that's not what I'm doing. No. But I've been hearing that that there is concern. I guess I'll word it that way: is the clawbacks, right? And what will the provincial governments do? Is that the opportunity that they may claw that back, is they may classify it as unearned income.
Yeah.
From the federal government said, hey, well, here we go. We're doing what you asked us to do. The provinces may say, well, that's actually not earned income now because you didn't actually earn it. You got it from another source. So they may now claw that off you and say, but there's more to do.
I believe what they'll have to do, they're going to have to negotiate something that it is in the act, an amendment or some kind of regulation that allows for, they're going to have to give this a special designation so that it circumvents those clawback issues.
And kind of classifies it as earned income then, kind of like.
They'll have to give it a special designation of some sort, that the Canada Disability Benefit is not this, it's not this, it's not this, it's this.
Yeah.
I'm being really general now, but I'm not really sure how they're proceeding with negotiations right now. I wish we knew more about that. I wish that, like you were saying about transparency, does each province have its own set of concerns?
Yeah.
You know what they are too, because that can be part of the meaningful feedback that people give for, best practices in other countries or other programs that, maybe you can mirror a best practice,
If I could just be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're right, Cheryl. I mean, I can't see the federal government being on board with the idea, like, we're going to give you this top up and that the provinces can just rape and pillage it all they want. I mean, I can't see the federal government being on board with that. I just can't.
Like the pink unicorn.
Yeah. So, I can see that the federal government, I can see them pushing back hard on something like that. Like I just can't.
It already happens. I mean, maybe this opens the doors for other things. If we had alleviated, people would be in better financial situations now that live with disabilities and depend on these checks that get clawed back already. Like if you're on a Canada Disability pension that gets clawed back from your provincial, how it works in Ontario, and where does that money go?
Yeah.
you just sit on that in the province, or you use that for like some other controversial issue or excess? Let's, I hope in 2024, this isn't just about people living with disabilities and allies. It's about equity seeking everywhere. We've got workers. We've got such a gap right now. Can we talk about how much is enough?
Yeah.
They're talking about grocery prices and
oh, I know, it's huge.
the CEO of I think it was Sobeys made like $8 million last year, something ridiculous
Around
like
there. Yeah.
Let's talk about, can we, as we're talking about access on this, like, can we as a country in 2024 bring to a head this issue of access before excess?
Yeah.
Everyone needs access to the basic needs for comfortable living before an executive of some kind can get excess.
Yeah.
A worker, I mean, I read so much that disturbs me about, people who are working not just 3 jobs, but that are working all these long hours and are still having to access a food bank. And,
One of my neighbors
wrong
does.
with that. Then you hear about excess on another, in another area. Whereas we're struggling right now, and we know we have studies. That's the other wonderful thing about the internet, right? You can look at best practices, and you can look at data, you can look at studies across different countries and developed countries too that are, equitable to Canada. And you can see if you want, the best way to stimulate your economy is to inject money at that low income,
100%.
seniors, people with disabilities. That is how you stimulate a local economy. If that's what your intent.
The way I always look at it too, Cheryl, is you give people the resources, you give them the money, they're going to put the money back into the community that they live in, and they're going to blossom other communities that they may go to visit. Now it's going to now stimulate their community and the economy. It's one of my neighbors, works at 4 jobs, and now is fearing that the other company is actually laying people off. So now that person needs that money in order to just get by. So they said they don't know what they're going to do. They're going to only have 3 jobs. And I said, oh my gosh, when do you sleep? Oh, I get about 4.5 hours sleep a night. And I said, how you can't function? And they said, well, no, like it's hard. And they don't have a diagnosed disability. They know they have other disabilities, but at the same time, like they're hidden disabilities. And that's the part that that really worries one of my neighbors, is that their daughter is actually supplementing their income, because they actually have one of their other rentals that they have, and they're renting it out. Like but anyway, they're going to be losing their other place because they can't hold on to it. So it's like a whole ripple effect throughout society of people and what they're struggling across the nation. This one little hiccup, boom, it can really have a huge impact.
I just wanted to back up the tape a little bit, Brent, because Cheryl was talking about pensions a little bit ago. And I think, Cheryl, I've had my service pension clawed back from the province for 10 years now, over 10 years now. I've had my service pension clawed back. And so I always say it's like, that saying, robbing Peter to pay Paul. They're clawing me back so that the provincial government can then give somebody else income exemption. So they take my money away so they can say, well, we're giving somebody else over here, we're taking money away from you so we can give an income exemption for somebody else over here. And it's just like, you're just shoveling money around and you're not actually giving it to somebody that really needs it, right?
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
And that's the huge part that's going on. Like some people would say, well, Brent, if you don't like it where you live, move to another place. Well, if we were to move, like within the same management company, as someone says, well, where do you live? Well, I won't say. But, if I moved, and I talked to my management company here, and they're awesome. Like they're genuine. I get it. Like they want to make money for, for the business, but they get it though. one of the managers used to be on subsidized housing when she first got going with her daughter, and so she gets it, how cruel the system can be. But she said the scary part is if you both move, I can rent you another unit in the same building, but you're going to be paying $1,750. I'm like, oh, that's minimum. There's other buildings that they have, and they're over $2,000.
Yeah.
And when the area, and you've heard the story that I've told you before, we moved from where we lived, and we were paying like it was getting up there. Like it was we had to for $1,510. If we wanted to continue, we would have been paying even more. Like there was another unit, $1,775, and we ended up having paid $1,775 temporarily. We couldn't afford it. So we had to relocate, and we couldn't find anything. Management companies would say, well, talk to me at the end of the month, give me a call, or the beginning of the next month, and see when someone's given their notice in, and we can we can definitely get you going. I go, well, I would have had to give my notice in, and with the cost of rent so high, we were being so careful. And the one place, and I always kind of refer back to that same part, because we figured, okay, well, we figured we're gonna have this place. Like I phoned this place up, and it was in Nanaimo, for instance, in Nanaimo, British Columbia. And I told them, like, we're persons with disabilities. We both get that this is the full amount we get, because the ministry's office said this is the amount, Brent, going forward. This is what you're going to be given. And you tell your new landlord, this is what you're getting. So I laid it right out. This is what I'm getting. I'm thinking, if they're not going to rent to me, whatever. And they said, no, we always rent to people with disabilities. No problem. So you're going to rent to me based on this income for sure. So I said, well, what do we do? Well, just give your notice in. So guess what we did? We gave our notice in to our landlord, and we did the application. I didn't hear anything. I called back, and they said, yeah, I'm sorry, but we've had to decline you, because the fact is that your income needs to be at $4,500 maximum between the two of you per month. I say, what? No, I said, you guys said you would rent to us. Yeah, well, we want people to live comfortably. We don't want you to struggle and not have to have enough money to pay for food and buy groceries and pay your your basic necessities, your bills. So we had to revoke our notice to our landlord, and we crossed our fingers praying that they did not rent it out to somebody, because if they did, we would have been in a bad situation. So we knew we had to find somewhere. Anyway, Sonia found the place in Victoria. We are here. We've been here over 2 years, 2.5 years now going on. We can't, now we look at the prices back in Langley, British Columbia, and we can't afford to live there. The prices are now well over $2,000, $2,500, $3,000 for a place. So yeah, like, and people say, well, move. Well, no. And the ministry won't even move us unless our rent is substantially reduced, Cheryl. That's a terminology that they've now put in place. No rent in Canada is $500 a month.
Yeah. I'm sure you'd be happy just to go back even to 1,500. You'd be overjoyed. You'd be overjoyed if it was that.
Yeah, but a whole check wouldn't even cover that rent.
Yeah, I know. Still, but
yeah, it puts us in a real precarious situation. And so now I was given advice, Brent, to stay where you are. If you're both well-being, just stay where you are. You're in a good spot right now until who knows what will come out of it. Yeah. So we're just kind of laying low. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's my story. Yeah.
And it's a widespread problem, and there's issues across the country, different scenarios, and people having to face like really hard decisions about not just where do I live, but am I homeless? Am I, I'm homeless, or I'm spending this much. And yeah, it's, and then the irony to me, I respect and I empathize with anyone who is going through really hard times and struggles. Okay. But I really, really have a hard time right now when we talk about mental health and mental health supports. And maybe for some people, a suicide hotline is helpful, more access to meaningful mental health supports. I get that. But a lot of our mental health issues are financial.
Yep.
They are because of other government decisions that are being made. You talked
Exactly.
about that woman that sleeps 4.5 hours a night.
Yeah.
I bet you if she had a full 8 hour night, she would be lying awake looking at the ceiling anyway.
Mm-hmm.
People are so stressed, and you can't fix it with talking about certain ways to think positive, and it's I need groceries. That's
Yeah.
my mental health issue. You know, like, and we've got to start addressing these things really, really candidly, and letting our government see that we are not operating in silos like you are. You have
Mm-hmm.
all of these policies and regulations that are in silos from each other, and we're living on the front lines, regular life, and this is the reality, and it's all connected. If
Mm-hmm.
people have money for groceries, crime rates go down.
Yep.
Healthcare costs go down. All
Absolutely.
kinds of other costs go down. And we know this. We have, I know, poverty reduction strategy research and
Mm-hmm.
social determinants of health. All of these research academic approaches that have been taken to really, really give the evidence so that our policymakers have evidence-based decision making and can make the right choices with confidence, and they're still dragging their feet.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
super frustrating.
You know, uh, the government likes to say, you know, just get a job. And I mean, that's a fair comment, except, you know, they don't acknowledge the fact that people with disabilities, I mean, if you have, and I've witnessed this because you know, I helped do a employment pilot project working with people with disabilities. And, you know, you can help somebody with a disability get a job, but, you know, if they're living in unsafe living conditions, like with bugs and mice, or with somebody threatening to kill them, you know, and this is our smelly carpets, and it's all of the above. I've heard of all the above. And if you have somebody that's not eating properly because they can't afford to eat properly,
Mm-hmm.
all those things, how do you expect a person that's not eating, that's getting their life threatened, or that's living in an unsafe housing environment, how do you expect them to wake up and get a job when they're facing all these barriers already?
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's no fault of their own. They're put in that position because they can't afford to be in a safe housing environment. They can't afford to have a proper meal, right?
Yeah.
well, Neil, that's exactly like a lot of it, what we talk about too. It's as Tom would say, you know, a job doesn't define who the person is. Like it's something that a person may be able to go to, but if they can't go to, then the government has a legal responsibility of taking care of its citizens and making sure they're supposed to, which they're not, but they're supposed to give people the proper resources and the income to survive in our ever-growing, escalating, you know, economy that inflation is going up, and yeah, it's brutal because yeah, I mean, sure, the Bank of Canada has now held the rates at 5.0%, right? Inflation's going up. I was watching the news this morning saying, well, yeah, the cost of things are supposed to maybe stabilize a little bit next year, but things are still going to be going up, but the prices won't be coming back down, they said. So that's scary because now, you know, the prices are going to stay the way they are. They might, a few items might come down a little bit, but what we used to know won't be coming down. And that part really worries me, is because I think, okay, fine, that's on groceries and your general goods, right? Goods and services. But why worry about the rent prices? Those weren't be coming down. Now they keep going up.
Yeah.
And then you get the government saying, well, here's $50 this month. We're going to skip a year. But then next year, we're going to give you, you know, here's a little bit more. Well, now your rent's already gone up. That doesn't even cover your cost of living, right?
Yeah.
And then say, well, there's more to do. Well, yeah, I get on that.
Sorry, Brent. We've talked
Sorry.
before too about pensions, disability pensions,
Oh, they
or
used to
disability payments used to be a pension, is what I'm trying to say.
on a time, yeah.
And once upon a time, back in the 80s and very early 90s, the disability payments used to be a pension. And what was great about that was it showed that disability was something to be respected. It was something to be respected. And now that you have income, you have disability being income of last resort, and it's like we're going to claw all this off you, and it's like, that is not showing respect. That's showing up like mountains and mountains and mountains of stigma,
Exactly.
and it's just so perverse now how everything is set up.
Well,
Yeah.
I was talking to I have there's a guy in my building. He's he's in his late 70s. He looks like he's in his late 40s. I couldn't believe it how he told me. But I was telling him about the income of last resort. He says, well, income of last resort. He says, no, they're pensions. I said, no, they don't. No, they were
It used to be.
And he says, what? When did that happen? I said, it did. And he goes, well, I mean, the seniors, they get pensions, but people with disabilities should have pensions too. I said, well, they call it income of last resort. They want you to exhaust all other revenue avenues. They want you to prove that you can't get EI. So, so it has to be changed. But the fact is that we were talking about even like bus passes, you've gotten to the bus pass issue. Just recently, we got Sonia's mom to apply, Cheryl, for a bus pass. She didn't know anything about it. I didn't, and I've been advocating about bus passes, and I figured, well, it had to be like seniors who were on disability. Like I didn't know that like a senior, and I feel bad because she could have been having a senior's bus pass for years. Okay, but I looked at the terminology, and of course the government doesn't, they didn't word it that way, so they could easily find that. But I found out that no, any senior who can be eligible to apply for a bus pass, and that bus pass is what the people with disabilities in BC used to have. Now they have a choice, but seniors will pay one flat amount. She went online within no time at all. Like 2 days later, boom, she got the letter in the mail saying, now here you go, take it to your bank, pay $45. So she went to the cashier. We were actually with her just recently. We went to Nanaimo. Sonia was supposed to have an appointment. It got canceled an hour before she was supposed to go in. So we trekked all the way there, and it's a 2-hour ride. Well, actually drive, but there was 4 hours on bus almost. So yeah, long trek out. Yeah, so we get there and it was canceled anyway. I asked her, I said, like, did you follow up, get this bus pass? Because I kept on her. I said, you need to apply for this. You should really do this. I think you should. I mean, you don't have to, but I think it'd be in your best interest to. So she did. She got her husband to help her with online and get this filled out. And yeah, 2 days after, they sent it out, and then they worded it was, did you want the bus pass for this year? She says, no, I don't need it for this year. I want it for next year of 2024. It's on how it was worded. And the ministry even admitted that yeah, it's on how it's worded, how the terminology is. So they said, yeah, no worries, or you're going to get it for next year. So now she has the freedom going, yay, like I don't have to now drive from point A to point B. It's going to save them a lot of money in gas.
Only on Saturday.
And only on Saturday, though, she can actually come out to Victoria. I just got to get that fixed.
Well, that really puts the focus on, and even like when you were talking about people with disabilities that are employable, you have to have reliable transportation.
Yeah.
You can't, to be able to get to work at a reliable time, and a reasonable time to be at a bus stop in the morning, a reasonable amount of walking to get to the bus stop. There's a lot of shortcomings in different areas. And I know that is, for the most part, municipal. But like I said before, we're used to these issues, these everyday issues have different jurisdictions, different levels of government, but they're all connected.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be employable, I need reliable transportation to be able to get me to work. If I can't afford a car, it's not just a car and the fuel, it's, you know, the insurance cost, like all these costs go up. People are looking for ways to free up money. They've got to redeploy money that they spending. They have to find money for food or find money for increased rent. A lot of people are giving up vehicles.
Yeah, they have to reallocate and juggle around. It's
Yeah.
like I used to call Rob. My mom used to call Rob Peter to pay Paul, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
who's Peter and who's Paul? She goes, no, it's a terminology. And then she taught me the time is juggling things around. I'm like, oh, okay.
And that increases the stress level too, right?
Yes.
And no, I know people who in order to get to the place of employment, like they've got to leave at 6:30 in the morning to start at 8:30 in the morning for some of these jobs because of the way these bus routes work. There's so many discrepancies. Like where I live, there's a lot of employers that are outside of the public transit jurisdiction.
Oh, yeah.
So you can't, like, there's so much in the way for someone who is already living in poverty. It's hard to live in poverty.
Yeah, like I'll give you an example. Like I've told the story. I'm not sure if you heard it, but like okay, so like we're in Victoria, Sonia's parents, and sometimes we like to just go out there just to see a different change of scenery too. But they live in Nanaimo, so we go from Victoria, which I'm grateful with Cowichan Transit. I pushed a lot of advocacy. Sonia did, and a whole bunch of us do it online. And I made phone calls nonstop. And I said, like, you got to change something. Well, they did. They tweaked it, but they made it look like look what we did. What they did was take one bus off their bus route early in the morning, and then they pushed it forward into the afternoon. So now it's like, so Cowichan provides the service to Victoria. Victoria doesn't provide that actual service. So it's actually Cowichan. So it's a jurisdictional thing here. So Cowichan provides it, but it's a commuter-based system. So it's AM and PM peak hour only service. They don't do it as an express service where Nanaimo to Duncan or Cowichan, they have an express service. So they run it throughout the day, the same kind of service. But if they were to call it commuter, if from Duncan to Nanaimo, it would now be the same situation where they can only run it AM and PM. But they did it so that it's throughout the day. And the reason why they have it, actually, Sonia could probably say it. Why does Nanaimo and Duncan have it, Sonia?
I don't know.
Because we pushed for it. We advocated to make that happen. So we actually made them actually provide that service. We nailed them. We went to all council meetings, this and that. We kept pushing the narrative saying people, well, they have to walk. I mean, you're going to make a person with disability walk, you know, for who knows how long, and it's not safe. It's just, and so anyway, yay. We made them do it. Now Cowichan blames Victoria. Victoria blames Cowichan. Jurisdictional, saying, well, they provide the service, so we don't have to do it. And now it leaves people with disabilities or people who, or anyone who doesn't drive or can't drive, maybe they can't afford to a vehicle. It leaves them kind of in the whims. So when we go to Nanaimo, I'll give you an example, Cheryl. We leave at say now 1:45 in the afternoon. Great, because you don't meet the rush hour. Now you can go all the way through. You can get to Cowichan. And we recently went last Thursday. It was great. The travel was smooth all the way through. We actually got there 9 minutes early, 9 minutes earlier than the bus was scheduled. And the connection time was still 15 minutes anyway. So we had, you know, a little bit of time, not enough time to really go over to say Tim Hortons, grab a cup of coffee because, you know, it could be busy and I don't want to miss that bus. You know, well, maybe wait a couple more hours for another bus to go to Nanaimo, but still, it worked out good. The next one after that's 3:45. They only have 4 buses during the weekday, PM. They're leaving Victoria. They originate from Cowichan and they park for the day. So when I say that, yeah, we can get from Victoria out, we can't get back the same day. No.
Yeah.
So you leave at 7:57 from Nanaimo in the morning, but now you have to get a ride. So we have to get our parents to drive us all the way down to that bus exchange. And they're about a half-hour driving their vehicle. So they'd have to leave at like say 7:15 just to be on the safe side in case there's any rush hour traffic. Now they have to be up at like 6 o'clock in the morning and inconvenience for parents to take us down because there's no transit that would take us down at that time in the morning to get down to a bus exchange in downtown Nanaimo. And that bus takes an hour and 10 minutes. So it gets there at 7 minutes after 9 in the morning. You wait till 9:23 and catch, that's the last bus now that leaves Cowichan to Victoria. If you miss that 9:23 bus, you got to wait till the next morning and try it all over again. Where are you going to stay?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We're-
So, yeah.
We're approaching the top of the hour here, Brent. I know we
Okay.
have to blast off. So
Yeah. I'd
if
love
you
to
have
have you back
really
on.
quick,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's have you back on again, Cheryl. We'll continue this conversation.
Yeah.
But we'll have you on, actually, I think we got the 28th and 29th open. We could actually do one of those days if you want.
Of December, you mean?
December. Yeah.
Oh, I'm doing a little bit of traveling and
Oh,
family
okay.
Yeah.
visiting so maybe in the early
Maybe
part of 2024, we'll kick off
Yeah.
the new year.
Season 2.
Season 2. Yay.
We'll keep the conversation going, but
Yeah.
this was a good springboard. Everybody's wheels are turning now, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And everybody stay strong in solidarity and have happy holidays.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for coming on. And I look forward to having you back on in the new year.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, take care.